Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me today, we have Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, and Mr. Flyperbole himself, Steve Tocchet. What is going on today, gentlemen?
Well, I've been traveling around South Philly, Center City, all over, but I'm here. I made it.
Charlie got here about 7 minutes ago. Steve a little before that, but we're here, and it is the day we met the new boss. Rick Tocchet, officially introduced as head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers.
It's funny you say we met the new boss, because if there was a overarching theme of this introductory press conference, it was meet the new boss, definitely not the same as the old boss.
Thank you. I was going to make that reference. I'm glad you beat me to it.
There's definitely a note in here somewhere in the outline that was like, it feels as if they went out of their way to just not directly, but just kind of drop things in. Like, he is the opposite. I know a lot of you might draw comparisons to Torts and Talk. Guess what? They're nowhere near the same. Like, that was kind of an overarching theme today.
I have a little bit of a tweaked perspective on that, but I do think that they intentionally wanted to highlight the contrast between Tocchet and Tortorella. Maybe not just for the fans, but for also like the players too, perhaps.
We cannot stress enough how much this man is not John Tortorella. He is Bizarro Torts in every way, shape, and form. Well, he doesn't even have hair.
And like, to Charlie's point, like going back to yesterday, when we talked about the Couturier video, like, yeah, it's not even just for us, the media. It's not even just for the fans. We got to let the players know, like, yeah, we may have let that get a little out of hand. Our bad. We love you again. Don't worry about it. That bad man is gone. Like that, there was very much a little bit of that today.
Mm-hmm. I love the Couturier video. Just the was going like, cool. All right. And Jody's like, you tell everybody. You spread the word. Yeah. Just in case I didn't make this very clear, I want you to tell the team directly. Did you understand?
Yeah. He said it like 3 times. And finally, Coots was like, so now I got something to do.
All right, cool. All right, fine. I'm going to go back to my nap.
We were officially introduced to Rick Tocchet today, the 25th head coach in Philadelphia Flyers history. When his remarks began in the first sentence with Walt Whitman Bridge and Spectrum, I was just like, here we go. But he brought it around and actually got me more on board as he kept going. This was pretty short and straightforward, I thought. I feel like we've had longer press conferences and situations like this in the past. They didn't take, I thought, a ton of questions, but it all kind of just seemed pretty straightforward today. Like, we think he's awesome. He's a great teacher. He's a great communicator. Obviously the ties, but it's way more than that. And here you go. He's the coach. And then it wasn't the most informative press conference, but it did kind of just connect the dots in my head. Like, we think this is the guy. Like, what are you going to ask? Because the answer is we think he's the best at that.
Yeah, there was so the way it worked was, I was down there. The way it worked was you had the big thing where everybody films it, and it was Briere and it was Tocchet, and that was the formal one. Then you had little breakouts, and obviously those were not recorded. So that was where I could provide some additional insight. And we all, not everybody, I ultimately got some time to talk with Dan Hilferty as well, which definitely will help me to write the article that I'm going to write after the show's done. But we all pretty much went to Danny right after. And I believe it was Kevin Kurz who asked the first question about the Brad Shaw news, about the fact that Brad Shaw obviously didn't get the job. And I reported yesterday afternoon that he is not going to be an assistant. Yeah. And Kevin asked him about that. And basically what Danny said, number one, he confirmed what I reported, that, he talked to Brad Shaw yesterday. Shaw said that he just, wasn't really able to be fully invested after going through the process.
Big dub for Charlie. Nice.
Hey-o. But what I thought was very interesting about what Danny said in his answer was essentially that, look, Shaw was a major part of this process. We really liked him. We have a lot of respect for him. But, and I don't want to say this is an exact quote because I don't remember what the exact words were, but the gist of it was, but we had a chance to get Rick Tocchet. And it just crystallized and solidified just how highly they think of this guy.
And that's pretty much what we have been through this whole process, we kind of, I think at least in my head, broke it down. Okay, we have Brad Shaw. We'd like to keep him around in some capacity. And guess what? If we can't get our number one target, who was very clearly Rick Tocchet from like a month and a half before they even fired the previous head coach, we have this guy who we do think very highly of in Brad Shaw as a teacher and a communicator. And you have the small sample at the end of the season, but the players definitely didn't want to mutiny, which is...
it's an improvement.
It's an improvement, you know? So we have this, and then... But we do have this number one target over here who, again, we've been talking about since like January. Yeah. They're able to get him, and it's, Brad, we'd love you to hang around, but we understand. And he's like, well, I'm glad you understand because WTF, I was just here in the, in your back pocket, which is like the phrase I used a couple of weeks ago. Like, well, we always have Brad Shaw in the back pocket. I could totally, as much as I wanted Shaw to stay, we recorded a mini pod yesterday talking about could Brad Shaw stick around, and of course, before we had a chance to edit and post it, Charlie broke the story.
He said he's not.
His content ruining my own content. So thanks a lot, Chuck.
Sorry.
Come on.
Charlie was in it too. But
and Bill, this is all for naught.
So do we? All right, let's do the Shaw thing because we haven't really talked about it, and the thing we did is lost to the ether now.
Sure.
We all, I think, wanted Shaw to stay in some capacity. I think we all kind of liked Brad Shaw and the job he did with the defense, the penalty kill, all that stuff. Where do you think this goes now? There was the Luke Richardson rumors.
I heard Luke Richardson thrown around a couple times today, just talking to people. Seems like that makes sense, at least to them. And, obviously it's going to bring up the former Flyer thing, but it's clear they don't care. It's clear they don't care. Yeah. I mean, Luke Richardson, he's a former NHL head coach.
He was a head coach. He was on my list of candidates, not a top tier one, but we had to fill some time at some point, talking about head coaches. And Luke Richardson is available. And I think he is one of those guys as a head coach. If he wasn't a former Flyer, I'd be maybe not Jay Woodcroft because he actually had tangible success, but all right, he was coaching the Chicago Blackhawks, whose best player is 18. Yeah. What were the expectations for this team when it's his one line mate is Nick Foligno, what exactly can we actually draw from Luke Richardson? Maybe he's one of these dudes who deserved another shot or at least another look. If they were to bring him in, listen, we've had our fun with the former Flyer thing, and
it is ridiculous,
and we will continue to.
It is the point of parody.
This won't drive me. This won't drive me nearly as insane, quite honestly.
It seems like it's going down that road now. Tocchet said they still have a lot of work to do. Obviously, this isn't something I think it's going to happen where they're going to name all the assistant coaches tomorrow. I don't think it's going to go that route, but it does seem like Richardson's name has been thrown around enough. Going back to Shaw, though, it's hard for me to know if this was always the inevitable outcome. My understanding is that it hurt Shaw, that he was hurt because he felt like he was the guy. He felt like he was the best option. And if it was handled differently, would he have been more open to staying? Maybe. Because my understanding of what essentially went down was...
Yeah, you broke down the timeline.
Yeah, which is basically they had conversations at the end of the season before he left. Shaw doesn't... they have a house in the Philly area. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they probably will be selling it now. But his family has a house in the Philly area. But they went back to Canada. So they were in Canada. And then at some point, the Flyers reached out to Brad and basically said, we want you to come back in for a real big formal interview. And he spent quite a long time preparing for that, did the interview, and then shortly thereafter, it became abundantly clear via rumors and everything that was breaking that Tocchet was going to get the job. And I think there may have been a little bit of why did you make me go through all this if you were just going to give it to Tocchet? I don't think that the Flyers meant it in that way. I think they probably were looking at it as, we don't know if Tocchet is even going to take this job. So we think Brad Shaw very well might be our next choice. So we're going to bring him in. And if the Tocchet thing falls through, or if Tocchet is insufficiently committed to the idea of being a Flyers coach, I'm sure they've talked to him through back channels over the course of the last few months. But in the formal process, if he steps into that room and is like, nah, I want us to go out and make 3 big trades this summer or else I'm not coming, they're probably going to say no. But as long as he came in, because I pushed Danny in our scrum after the thing, I pushed him and I basically said that, was he always your top choice? And Danny's initial response was, well, we wanted to see if he really wanted the job and we wanted to see if we clicked with him. And then I kind of pushed a little bit more and I'm like, but if he said he wanted the job, was he always your top choice? And Danny was like, well, I don't really think of it that way. I think that's actually probably what it was.
So yes.
Yes. So yes.
Let's not mince words here.
But my point is that I think that because there was, I believe, legitimate uncertainty from the Flyers' perspective about whether they were going to get Tocchet, they went pretty far down the road with Shaw. And I wonder if the situation had been like Tocchet gets the job 2 days after he cuts ties with Vancouver, might they have been able to keep Shaw? I don't know. Maybe the hurt still would have been there. Maybe it wouldn't have been as much. But I don't necessarily think it was like incompetence on the part of the Flyers. I just think that they didn't know for sure that Tocchet was going to be available and be fully committed. It's just that once they realized he was available and fully committed, things got done quickly, and Shaw kind of felt like he was left holding the bag.
I mean, there was the rumor at the end of the season before, like, it eventually got dispelled, but it was like, yeah, Vancouver's going to exercise that option and kind of hold him hostage.
That was legitimate speculation.
That was like a thing people were saying for a little bit, so you really didn't know. And we talked about this a little yesterday. Like, yeah, I would have loved to keep Brad Shaw, and I think it would have been, for continuity's sake, good for the defenseman he has been developing, and for the ones who are on their way. Like, I don't know. I kind of like the progress I've seen these other guys make. So, yeah, let's try it with Bonk and McDonald and all these other guys as well. But this is one of those things I can't hold against the Fly. Like, and listen, I don't know. I wasn't the highest on Rick Tocchet, but if you think this is the end all be all, this is your number one guy, you have to do what it takes to get him. Well, that's what it comes down to.
They're clearly confident in Rick Tocchet being the guy, and that's the biggest factor here. If you're confident that a coach is the guy, you have to be confident also that who he hires as assistants are also going to be the guys, the right guys for the job. So when you put the faith in Tocchet, you're also putting the faith in who he then chooses as his assistants from there.
My understanding, and I don't know this for a fact, but my understanding is the Flyers were very open to the idea of Tocchet taking on Shaw as an assistant. Now, that was dependent upon, because they didn't know each other. There was no pre-existing relationship between Tocchet and Shaw. So that was going to be dependent upon like them having conversations and realizing they don't hate each other, that they can click. But Shaw's so easy to deal with. I don't think that would have been a problem. I mean, God, Brad Shaw is best friends with John Tortorella, like the most difficult human in hockey. If you can be friends with him, you can be friends with anyone. So I don't think that would have been a deal breaker. I just think that in the end, Shaw didn't feel comfortable taking his old position after everything that had went down, and it's hard to blame him. Like,
no, not at all.
I don't know. I would have loved for the Flyers to have kept him, because I think he's really good at what he does. I do. I just feel like, look at it from Shaw's perspective. He's seeing all the same rumors we're hearing. He's in the hockey world. He's hearing the same rumors we're hearing about everybody being like, this is Tocchet's job. It's Tocchet's job. It's Tocchet's job. And then the Flyers bring you along the way in the process and make it feel like you have a real shot. And then you do the interview, and then they go and hire the guy who everyone has been saying since February was going to get the job. Yeah. It's easy for you to feel like, oh, so you were always going to do this and you were just stringing me along as the second choice, which again, isn't necessarily wrong and an incorrect interpretation from the Flyers' perspective, though. Like, they can't put all their eggs in the Tocchet basket if he then says no, and then you lose out of your second choice too. So it's a tough situation all around. I totally understand why Shaw felt especially spurned given the way it went, but I see why the Flyers did what they did too.
I think I can relate this to something Tocchet talked about, at least his explanation of the Miller and Pettersson feud, whatever. There's not always a bad guy. Sometimes things just don't work out, and that's how I look at the Shaw thing. Like, from Shaw's perspective, I can imagine him just being like, I did everything I could have done.
Yes.
Like, I took
and I think he did. Like, I think he absolutely did.
Like, look at the strides some of the defensemen on this team have made, including guys who Like a year ago, we were like, he stinks. You know, like look at some of the strides some of these players have made. Look at what the penalty kill did last year. Like you have my entire resume to judge me on, plus the interviews, and I think I did everything. If I'm just not your guy, like I got to look for other opportunities. And I can see even him thinking, how do I then go back to like, do you lose credibility with the players who did love you? Like they thought, they know he got interviewed. He was going to be the head coach. And now, all right, he's back in the job he was in before. Like, that's kind of, I don't know about lose credibility, but just like, what if they all loved Shaw? Now, do they like kind of hold it against Rick Tocchet?
I don't think that would have happened, but I just think, and ultimately, I don't think Shaw's going to get a head coaching job. I think he's going to take an assistant job somewhere else and do a great job. So I don't think this was like, well, I'm going to hold out for a head coaching job. He knows he's probably going to get a similar job elsewhere. It's just that he would have felt weird having the same job after going through the process and coaching under the guy who beat you out for the job. Like I saw somebody in our chat mention this, and it's a fair point. It wasn't like he was promised the assistant coach job. It was, you are functionally going to be interviewing for the assistant coach job, which you already had. You can see how that might be, you can see from the Flyers perspective, like, yeah, we don't want to just bring this guy in without knowing if he like can like speak cordially with Rick Tocchet. But you could see it from Shaw's perspective being like, so you're making me re-interview for the job I already had? Don't love that. I did see someone in there also say that, what if this is just PR from the Flyers where actually Tocchet wanted all of his own people and they're just spinning it that it was Shaw? I obviously am not going to reveal my sources. That is not this, okay? This was something that I got and then the team later confirmed it. This is not PR from the team, I can tell you that.
It makes sense. I mean, if you're the interim manager for a little bit at any place, any job, right? And then somebody comes along and says, all right, you did a good job, but we think this guy's way better, so we're going to put him in, and you have to go back to doing your old job now. That sucks. Nobody wants to hear that, especially when you want that promotion.
Exactly.
When you want that job.
And you believe that you were the best person for the job.
Yes.
I mean, and full disclosure, like, I had Bradshaw in my top tier candidates. I had Rick Tocchet in my mid tier candidates. So, like, in essence, I agree with him.
Right. Well, I find this such a weird move from a timing perspective with the Flyers rebuild, right? Where the Flyers are at this point where they're almost like ready to jump back into things because of Michkov and everything. But Tocchet feels more like a guy you hire for a more immediate situation where you're like getting back into the thick of things now, where Shaw feels like a better development guy for this stage of the rebuild.
Yeah. And I did think, because you tweeted this, and it was like Danny Briere is basically, it was like,
it was his lead.
He's our coach, blah, blah, blah. And before you ask any questions, the plan doesn't change.
The plan doesn't change. Yeah, so let's get back into the Tocchet. We've broken down the Shaw thing. That was the opening statement, basically, of the plan doesn't change. And this, again, goes back to what I've been saying the last couple of days, because a lot of the chatter has been, well, does this accelerate things? You just hired a 61-year-old coach who, according to the reporting of Josh Yeo at The Athletic, who covers the Penguins, one of the reasons why he was more in favor of going to Philly versus Pittsburgh is that Philly is further along in their rebuild than Pittsburgh is, and he doesn't want to wait 3, 4, 5 years.
Oh, so they started it being further along, as opposed to Pittsburgh, who has not acknowledged that all their guys are mummies at this point.
I mean, they're definitely
very effective mummies, but they're mummies.
They're not going to trade Sidney Crosby.
I know
you
they're
know
not.
that. But I guess,
but they haven't started a rebuild.
I think
because they have a bunch of old guys.
Yeah, I think they have guys who they can't trade for reasons aside from the rebuild. They can't trade Sidney Crosby because he's Sidney freaking Crosby.
Oh, absolutely.
And there are guys who are around. Like, I think they'd be willing to trade Chris Letang, guys like that. But Crosby is the guy. And I guess you can make the case it's not a true rebuild as long as Crosby's still there. Well, then I guess it's never going to be a true rebuild. Like, when they traded Jake Gensel, when they move guys out, they have a lot of picks this year. I think they are rebuilding. I just think they are on the ground floor of rebuilding. The Flyers are a little bit more into it. And this, again, goes back to what I was saying about the timeline for the Flyers, this solidifying and making sure we know what it is. They always plan to go out and turn the corner in 2026. That was always the plan. It's not new because they hired Tocchet. That was always the plan. And I think Tocchet looks at it as, okay, I got one more year of us, of me being the guy who's making an underwhelming roster competitive. and then I'm going to get the reinforcements, and then it's go time. Now, set year 2, probably they're not expecting them to go to the Cup final, but they're expecting to have a team that on paper looks like a playoff team. That is what is going on here, and that's why Tocchet is more open to the idea of joining the Flyers than I think he was open to joining the Penguins.
Makes sense.
All right, before we go any further today, we got to take a quick break to hear from a couple of our sponsors. Got to tell you about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services, because at Ace Hardware, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. They bring experience. They're local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. They bring understanding. They listen to your goals, and the job isn't complete until you're satisfied. And they bring helpful. They bring helpful to your home so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter to you. Free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with trusted advisors and options that are best suited for your home and budget, and service you can trust, and satisfaction is always guaranteed. And Ace Hardware Home Services, well, they're local. Their teams live and serve in your community and are dedicated to keeping their neighbors comfortable in their home. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. While we're here, got to tell you about our friends at Bet365. I've been telling you about Bet365 for like a couple of years now. And you know what they say, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, whether it's their 90 million users worldwide, the almost 800,000 events they live stream each year, or the early payouts offered across the NBA and NHL. You have to make Bet365 your sportsbook of choice, because Bet365, well, they're one of the pioneers of live in-game betting. And today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Can you name 78 sports? Because I can't, but you can bet on them at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And we've got breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your initial bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone who has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Just waiting for... Do you think they can hear the thunder in
I was just wondering that. What a spooky way to bring in the new coach today.
Right. It is just downpouring in Philadelphia.
Bad omens.
Yes,
Bad
just looking
omens.
absolutely great. But let's get back to Tocchet. I'll tell you, like I said, when the presser opens with Tocchet mentioning Walt Whitman Bridge and Spectrum, just like, oh, here we go. But it was fine.
He's got the Nick Sirianni pandering face. Like he just brings out like a soft pretzel. He brings out some tasty cakes.
I'll tell you, I want to know, it's a small, stupid thing, and Charlie's going to roll his eyes at this. When he comes out and they give him the jersey, I was real interested to see what number was on it. And it turns out to be 25 for the year and the number of coaches they've had, whatever you want to say.
Right.
It's not this.
Were you a little surprised it wasn't 22 or 92? Like, give him his old player number?
You want a 22.
You want 22.
You want a 22.
You want 22. 92 was a brief
Who
time.
was the 20? Who would have been the 22nd head coach? So Shaw was 24. So 23, therefore, was Torts. So 22 would have been Mike Yeo.
Yes.
Mike Yeo would have been the 22nd coach.
Oh,
right?
what a perfect number right there. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Let's.
The best. I'm looking
it's
it up right
backwards
now.
here. So, yes.
22,
That sounds
I guess,
right.
was Mike Yeo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right.
sorry,
Anyway,
Mike Yeo gets the number 22 Flyers jersey. Steve.
so
It might
Apologies.
be Elaine Vigneault.
So we
I think it comes down to whether you're incling.
Yeah.
they include all the interims.
You're including interims.
Yeah.
You're including the
The
Mike
list
Yeo. What a
includes-
legend. What a
The
legend.
list includes all
They
the
always
interims.
look confused.
At least on Hockey Reference. The idea of Tocchet as a communicator and teacher was stressed over and over again.
That was my question to Danny at the exit interview was, what are you looking for in a head coach? And he came prepared with, this is why he's a teacher. This is why he's a communicator.
That was part of his opening statement.
Yes.
Was like, I told you at the exit interview, this is what I'm looking for. And these are the qualities we see in him. And I was interested that Danny did point to his time coming into the league on the Coyotes with Rick Tocchet there, one of the veteran leaders on that team in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think, before Tocchet got traded back here. And Toc was kind of a mentor to him. And that communication seems to have carried over to his coaching. Like, that's what we hear about him from everybody. This guy communicates with everyone in the building, and he does it very well. We've said, like, he communicates openly and often with the media, and that's why so many are positively predisposed to Rick Tocchet. But that did come off today. This dude is absolutely a person that you would listen to when they are speaking. Like, his command of this, just making the small jokes, but also obviously like having that gravitas, I guess. Like, it all did really come off today, I thought.
It's all about the gravitas at the end of the day. That's what I'm looking for in a head coach. I like hearing all the teacher stuff. That's obviously very important for a young team when you're relying upon Matvei Michkov, when you're relying upon Tyson Forrester, and then you look at some of the names coming up in the coming years. You look at Bonk, for instance, coming up, and whoever the heck they draft this year with the 6th overall pick. So the teacher aspect is paramount to this hire.
Yeah,
it clearly is.
No, that's pretty obvious. And just the idea that the plan doesn't change, like Charlie was talking about earlier, that was Briere's opening statement, basically. It all does kind of line up. Like, this is still technically the final year of John Tortorella's contract, and we weren't supposed to have Matvei Michkov yet.
Yeah, it's true.
It all kind of does line up, and Tocchet is on board with, and he said multiple times, like, the plan. When he was asked why here, he's like, well, stability. And then he talked about stability of ownership, because it's like, you came to the Flyers for stability. I'm gonna need a little more on that.
I mean, the money's there.
But yeah, he talked about the area and the fan base, but really like the roster potential and unlocking that. And he got into it. Like, we have all these picks, we have all these prospects, we have all this cap space, at least future cap space. It's an attractive job, and this potential to teach these guys. Like, it was a little reassuring that somebody like Rick Tocchet had his pick of jobs. Whether you wanted Rick Tocchet hired or not, he could have gone anywhere.
Sure.
There are probably places that if he called, like St. Louis did with Jim Montgomery, like, oh, he's available? We got rid of our coach.
All right.
Like, there may have been places like that.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, like
Goodbye.
there may have been opportunities for him to do that even, or he could have gone back to TV and waited for Thanksgiving when some team freaks out because they're only 500 and fires their coach.
Yeah.
He could have had his pick of jobs.
Boston is probably an attractive job because you have Pasternak. I mean, who needs to rebuild when you have Pasternak
and McAvoy
100+?
Yeah, and McAvoy.
Yeah, I did.
2 great players.
It was a little reassuring that he was like, they laid out the plan for me and I see it. And that includes this year being, I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 team again. But like Charlie said, I also don't think they're winning the cup. Like, and that was reassuring to me that he knows the plan and is on board with it and sees the potential.
Because that was the big issue with Torts at the end, right? Is that he was no longer on board with the plan. He was frustrated with the plan.
Yeah, I think my takeaway, and this is going to be the thrust of my article that I'm going to do. Because you mentioned at the start of this that he came off, at least they presented him kind of as anti-Torts. I take it a little bit differently. I think they presented him more as like Torts 2.0. It's like, I don't think it is like he's been described as like Tortorella light, and that strikes me as inaccurate. But I think the way they view him at its core is, what if we had John Tortorella, but we removed all the things about John Tortorella that we didn't like and replaced them with things we like? That to me, because like the one quote that Danny gave that I thought gave away the game a little bit about the whole, like, the plan is the same. When I asked Danny about why you think Rick Tocchet is a good teacher, you said, yeah, he was my mentor when I was a player, but like, what in his head coaching resume tells you that he's a good teacher? And he's like, look, a lot of people might point to the Jack Adams year. I point to the Arizona Coyotes. That team was depleted, and he made them competitive. What has been the linking theme of this entire rebuild? It has been, we are not bottoming out. We are going to be competitive. We think that is important, that the idea of like winning games and not being the worst team, even when we don't have the greatest roster yet, that's important. That to me was like, yup, they're still doing it. They didn't think Torts could do that anymore because he had checked out. And now Tocchet is going to be the guy who gets more out of a limited roster for the last little bit of this part of the rebuild. But then, and Danny said, we see him as a long-term coach, then can also, they believe, be the coach to coach them when they do have the roster that is expected to make playoff appearances and possibly more than that.
Yeah, I think that was your question. And he pointed out the time with the Coyotes. And that's basically what he's going to be doing here, at least for a year.
At least for a year, exactly.
For a year, he's done this thing already, and we were impressed with the way he did it. Yep. That team was supposed to suck. He did say he made the playoffs with them, and it's like, okay, technically you're right, he did.
That bothers you.
They were in 11th out of 15 teams.
Okay. However, they did win against a team that was in the playoffs. They beat a 6 seed.
All right, they won a best of 3. Congratulations.
Just saying. They did.
Anyway.
He did a great job.
I wanted to make this joke.
He did a great job.
I wanted to make this joke, and I'm going to get it in, even though it was a couple minutes ago. You were saying, it's maybe not the anti-Torts, but Torts 2.0. And I remember this, it turned into a commercial the Sixers ran for season tickets or something. And it was at following Larry Brown, they had a couple of coaches, but then they hired Jim O'Brien. And at the press conference, he's like, we're going to play the right way. We're going to play good defense, this and that. Someone's just like, all right, but it just kind of sounds a lot like what Larry Brown used to say. He goes, but I believe in the 3-pointer. and it was just they did a thing D and 3. And it was yeah, it's all that good stuff. And he's not a huge jerk.
That was basically what it was.
Basically, the crux of today. All the goods, and we were saying that yesterday. We've been saying that since the hire. It's not as if he's exactly like Torts, but he has a lot of the things that, even though he's insane, you would point to and be like, yeah, but this is what makes him a good coach. It's Rick Tocchet has all of that. And he's not going to try to punch Cam York.
How about that?
That is, he is not going to bench Sean Couturier and not tell him why.
There were a couple points in this presser where I raised my eyebrows. There was one that almost made me laugh, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the points that did make me raise my eyebrows and be like, that's interesting. Wonder if you planned to say that. You went in knowing you were going to say that. When Tocchet said, I'm not going to be a dictator and make everyone follow all these rules. And then he finished it with, I think that if you try to do that, you're not going to be coaching in this league very long.
Who could you possibly mean by that comment?
That was subtle.
I don't know who you can mean. All I had to do today was just get up there and say, I'm going to let Matvey cook. And everybody would have been fine with that.
I want to talk about his response to the question about JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. Because that to me is, if not for that, there's no reason he's not coaching maybe they're not still alive because half the series
facility,
are over.
Bill.
The practice facility.
That was the comment that made me laugh.
Yes.
But his response to Miller and Pettersson, because that is more than anything probably the reason he's not the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks right now.
Presumably, if the two star players liked each other, that's probably a playoff.
Not even liked each other. Just
coexist.
Could live working in the same place without needing to fight each other.
Didn't even need to be on the same line.
No,
just be in the same room.
Play in the same position. You're on the same power play. That's it. You go to the same meetings once a week. Whatever.
Be on the same ice at practice.
Apparently, well, they only have one sheet of ice, so they're not able to split them up, I guess.
The bench. It's a big bench.
It's a big bench.
But this was actually my number one question about the Tocchet hire, because seeing the locker room go to that state with those two big players, JT Miller, a guy who's putting up 100+ points, I never thought that would happen. And he just turned into a stud on that team, and it all fell apart under Tocchet's watch. So that was my big question heading into
Tocchett's response to it, did you learn anything, blah, blah, blah. He's like, listen, you always learn from experiences. But honestly, sometimes things just don't work out. And he's like, listen, neither guy is a bad guy here. He was like, I'm still in communication with JT Miller, still a friend. And then he's like, and same for Elias.
Yeah, it was very obvious who he identifies with more.
Absolutely.
Very obvious.
It was I love JT Miller. Oh, and Pettersson too.
Yeah, he's cool.
So we're trading for him,
How
right?
did you, Charlie,
Definitely
you're there. This is one of the big questions about his tenure in Vancouver, because this is a team that was freaking awesome a year ago and this year missed the playoffs. What was your response to that line of answer?
I guess I'm more accepting of it than others are, because I'm more accepting of the idea that the situation was just untenable. And it's possible, like I'm open to the idea that another coach could have handled it better, but I think it would have been like a Herculean effort to make it work, because that was a problem before Tocchet got here. If anything, Tocchet addressed it well in year one, to the point where they both had real good years, at least for Pettersson the first like 2/3 of the year. Yeah. And then it all like came rushing back to the surface. It's hard for me to kill him for it, even though I understand why some people do. To me, my bigger concern coming out of the Pettersson-Miller thing isn't, I think he could have handled it better. It's more a concern on my part that there are certain players who have a certain mentality that Tocchet just may not be able to work with, because he just doesn't think they got that dog in them. And like, but that comes back to my perspective of like, if you talk to hockey people, there are a lot of hockey people that'll say, oh, Elias Pettersson, you can't win with him. You're never going to win a cup with Elias Pettersson. You're never going to win anything meaningful. He's soft, whatever. I don't buy into that. I am of the belief that, like, if you're saying that, you're basically just putting all hockey players into one box and everybody else in another, and be like, these guys are winners and these guys are soft. And I think too many hockey people do that. So I fundamentally disagree with that way of categorizing players. And that's one of my concerns about Tocchet, a legitimate concern. But I don't necessarily think that particular situation would have been salvageable. I just worry that, like, what if the Flyers draft another Elias Pettersson type? Is Tocchet just going to, like, throw him out the window? Like, I worry about that, even if he's super skilled and real good. I don't think michkov fits that bucket. What if, like, a guy who they get, you know, if they draft a guy in the second round, he becomes a stud, and then, but, like, oh, he's a Zoomer. Like, you know, he's got that, like, you know, Gen Z mentality. Like, is Tocchet going to be able to handle that? Or is he going to say, get rid of him, and then 2 years later, the guy's going to be scoring 90 points for Seattle?
No, that's the Pettersson Miller thing. Like, I don't want to kill Tocchet for it, because like the length it seems to have gone. Like, we've always heard rumors about things sometimes, like, oh yeah, these guys maybe not get along. Like, I always think of that 2011 team. We kind of had an idea, like, who the problems were in the locker room and what the sides were. This was out in the open. The coach and GM are talking about, like, oh yeah, these guys just don't like each other. They don't get along. Yeah. Like, it was so obvious. Yeah. Other than, like, smack them in the back of the head and say, grow the hell up, I really don't know what Tocchet's supposed to do. Like, it's one of those things I want to kill him for it, because, like, anytime, and I said this on Gargano yesterday when we were arguing, like, I don't know, man. Anytime I've ever seen a team have a culture problem and a locker room fall apart, we've blamed the coach. I've never seen it go any other way.
That's fair.
This one, we have so many details of, like, you know, something happens at practice and JT Miller's just like, get up, you effing baby. Like, that's hilarious. But, like, I don't know. Stop making these comments out loud in front of the whole team, JT. Yeah, right? Yeah. Like, don't do this anymore. Yeah. And he continues to. Like, I don't know. He's our number one center. What do I bench him? I'm going to get fired if we lose a bunch of games. So I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to do here. It is something that it's ridiculous, but I'm actually not sure what the head coach was supposed to do, considering, like, we don't hear about this stuff in this much detail.
No, we don't.
We hear rumors, and, like, you're plugged in, Charlie. Yeah. So you get, you know, the off the record. Everyone knows about this. We are 5,000 miles away from Vancouver, and we know, like, most of the story. I don't know what Tocchet was supposed to do about this one specifically.
Shouldn't allow bullying in his locker room, Bill.
I guess.
Clearly, Pettersson was getting bullied. This is wrong. He should shut it down. I don't know what to do about that. It's such an unusual situation, as you were saying, and the fact that we know so much about this is definitely, especially in hockey culture, where everybody's so tight-lipped and, like, well, you just got to go out there and do a better job, give 100%.
Get pucks deep, man. I don't know what to tell you.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
So another thing that was very clearly something that Danny ran with, the whole hiring Tocchet will help us add players.
That was a big deal. We talked about that a little yesterday.
We knew that was a big deal. I don't know if I was expecting Briere to openly embrace as much as he did just how big of a deal it was.
That player poll that came out, and I don't think that was, like, the final straw or anything, but maybe, like we said yesterday, just a little bit of a reminder, like, the plan is this. we're not going to be drafting everybody. Like, that's clear. We're going to have to add these guys. Oh, like half the league says the guy, and they didn't say I would never, ever. They were just like, if I had my choice, I'd probably like to not play for John Tortorella.
And guess what free agents have?
Yeah.
A choice.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that was like Tocchet being so popular around the league. Danny Briere started a thought and kind of like tailed into something else, but he's like, we've already heard from agents, like player agents.
Yeah.
And I really feel like truth serum off the record, the rest of that, and this is just conjecture for me. Charlie was there, not me. Conjecture, like Danny would, the end of that thought is we're not on no trade lists anymore.
I would not be shocked.
That really sounded like just hearing what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was like, we've heard, because like no agent is calling Danny Briere and being like, offer sheet my guy now, he'll sign, because that's kind of like illegal. I mean, those conversations happen. Maybe, Matty Nyes' agent is like, we're coming, sign it. But like, it kind of just sounded like we are if you called about interest in whoever before, and it was like, he ain't coming, man. Like you're on his no trade list because of John Tortorella.
Because of this guy.
We're going to be taking an eraser to that on July 1st or whenever they get to redo their trade lists.
Well, that's what was so baffling about the Tortorella hire in the first place, is like, he's got this known reputation around the league for this. And they were in such a weird place when they hired him in the first place. But
it's a retool,
it's
Steve.
Just something, even with the retool, the rebuild, whatever the hell you wanted to call it at the time, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because it's also when you're ready to get back into gear, this is the guy with the worst reputation around the league for, just flying off the handle and, just known jerk, right?
What will always strike me as the ultimate irony of the John Tortorella tenure is that the people who hired him in no small part because they didn't want to rebuild. And then he comes in and within like 2 months is like, nah, you need to rebuild. Yeah, the guy who they brought in because he's the win now, like get the most out of his team, was here for like 2 weeks and came to the conclusion, like, what are you guys doing? You need to start over. This team is bad.
It was ultimately like when Chuck Fletcher showed up and he was like, it did just a couple of things that made us all remember, like, oh, we're not insane. Like Yuri Laterra, no good.
He's bad.
Andrew McDonald, no good. Yeah,
gone.
Like, these guys have to go. They were no longer gaslighting us.
Yeah.
And like John Tortorella showed up and he was, it's funny because I call him insane all the time. He was the sanest person in the room simply because he pointed out the obvious.
He accepted reality.
This team stinks. Like,
what is this?
He was just willing to acknowledge reality, which it seems like the previous regime had no interest in. And then it was like, I think it's kind of, we say he's an emotional fan. We're all on board for the rebuild. And then we're in year 3 of it, like banging our heads against the wall because we're watching games every night that don't matter.
Right.
And that's kind of the way John Tortorella felt it, I think, at the end. And can't blame him. That's how I feel. I know it's right for them to kind of tank another year and try to get at the top of the draft. And I don't want them to.
I think the frustration,
I can't.
The frustration point from the Briere Jones contingent in the triumvirate was that, and again, like they've made it abundantly clear, Rick Tocchet would not have taken this job if they actually were going to do what they did last year for another 2-3 years. He would not have. He would not have done it. Their frustration, I bet, was like, John, like, you just have to make it through the end of this year. You know we're going to improve in the summer. We've told you. And then the next summer, we're going to go out and we're going to go jumping in the deep end of the free agency pool. Like, you just have to hold it together for like 4 more weeks, man. And he couldn't do it.
He's like,
he just couldn't do it.
Am I allowed?
He was cooked.
Am I allowed to hold the captain over my knee and smack him in front of the locker room? Like, no, John, no,
you can't do that.
Like, it would have been one thing if they would have told him at the deadline, like, we're going to be doing this for another 3-4 years. Like, sorry, we pivoted. They didn't pivot. They were always going to try to improve the team this summer and then go all out the next summer. And Torts knew that, and he still couldn't do it.
All right, before we wrap up today's conversation, got to take one more quick break. 1-800-588-2300-EMPIRE.
Today.
Oh, I love it. Listen, I've been telling you about Empire Today for months now, and What sets them apart for everyone else? Why are they the choice for your new flooring? It's because of their experts. It's their people who live and breathe flooring. Empire Today, they will be with you every step of the way. And with them, it's a whole different ballgame than the big box stores. You don't have to go to the store yourself, pick up all the supplies, take all the measurements, find a contractor when you finally just give up and decide you can't do it yourself. All of that out the window with Empire Today. They're with you every step of the way, and they bring the showroom right to your space. You can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your home, in your home. See how it all looks up against your furniture, up against the colors in your house, all of that. And they'll take the precise measurements for you and have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. And with Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. And PHLY listeners, listen up, because you can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. While we're here, it's Art of Words time. I am a big fan of Art of Words. I have some of these pieces in my house. They're really, really cool. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Oh, this local Philly artist, he is proving it, because each piece is made entirely from handwritten words. Like, say, the name of every Eagle forming the link, or every Philly shaping Citizens Bank Park. And it's not just sports. He's captured Boathouse Row, Reading Terminal, the Philly skyline, Jersey Shore, and so much more. These are unforgettable gifts for sports fans, grads, housewarmings, Father's Day right around the corner, any occasion. He started selling art at the K-Lot and Rice's Flea Market, and credits Philly fans for launching his career. And it's available for dozens of teams and cities too. There's something for everyone, but come on. We want the Philly stuff. That's what we're here to talk about. And these pieces are a total conversation starter. You'll spot a name, then another, and soon everyone's reliving their favorite memories. These two last week when Steve was filling in for me, it was just remembering some guys' day.
Remember some dudes.
This is literally just remembering some guys' art. It's really cool. It's a conversation starter for sure. And the art has been featured on the Today Show, ESPN, and TED Talks. Check it all out at artofwords.com. That's artofwords.com. And use code PHLY at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
All right, before we get back to the breakdown of the Tocchet presser, we're at 149 likes. Let's get that to 200. Let's get it to 200.
Hit that like button.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right. I do want to get to the funny part that you wanted to talk about, Charlie, because he talks about stability.
Right.
Like, why here was the question.
Yeah, why pick? Because he had his choice from quite a few spots. We've heard Boston. We've heard Seattle. We've heard at least he had preliminary conversations with Pittsburgh. There were options.
Not to mention TV.
TV.
He could have just not coached at all and had a real comfortable, easy job.
Made a couple $1 a year to chat about hockey.
Dunk on Bill.
Three nights a week.
And so he says stability, relationships, the area fan base, all that. And then he comes back to stability. And he says stability of ownership. And I do think, yes, a lot of us sometimes, take Comcast for granted or wish there was a hockey person all the way at the top so that when things start to go awry, the buck would stop with them. But that's not
furious old man who will march down and scream at you when things are going poorly.
That's not the case here, but they do have, the structure that they have. But we talk about the benefits. They have an unlimited budget. It's not actually unlimited, but if they wanted it to be, they can spend as much as anyone in the entire league. They are owned by a super corporation. And that stability, that sort of stability of ownership, he just goes, I went to the practice facility. There's 3 sheets of ice. The practice facility comes up. The practice facility coming up again because on his way out, he kind of took shots at Vancouver. Do they just practice at their rink?
Yes.
At their arena? Is that what they do?
They don't have a practice facility. That was something. I don't think Tocchet ever said it on the record, but it was referenced by enough of the insiders that it seems like it actually was something that bothered him, that they just don't have a practice facility. And the fact that he brings it up unprompted in his intro presser with his new team, they got a practice facility, 3 sheets. Incredible. That was that was so good. I was having real trouble.
How does a
not laughing after
Canadian
that one.
hockey team not have a practice facility?
Apparently,
that blows my mind.
I mean, it is embarrassing, 100%. What I've heard is that like real estate in Vancouver is through the roof, and like it's just really hard to get that big of a spot to. They should be able to do it, but that's what you hear is that like to get that big of a plot to build an arena size practice facility, it would be very expensive. And to this point, Vancouver's ownership has not been willing to spend that kind of money.
So they're cheap. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I have no idea what their setup at their arena is. I just wonder, like, is there enough room in the parking lot to like build a tiny skate zone? Like, they don't have that. They don't have that. Like, you already own that.
Well,
I'm just
actually, you've never been.
Yeah, I don't know.
So the Vancouver arena
is it a downtown arena?
It is smack in the middle of the downtown.
Yeah.
So it's not like here where there's a ton of open space and they could theoretically cut into FDR Park if they wanted to.
Yeah,
it is like the freeway cuts like over top of the arena.
Okay.
So I understand more now why a practice facility would be an important issue to him, knowing that layout, because the nice thing about the Flyers practice facility, most of the players live in South Jersey.
Yeah, sure.
And they don't have to deal with city traffic to go in and out of the practice facility. Jaromir Jagr can check in at midnight, do all his crazy weights, and run all the stairs.
Yeah. It very much played as a little dig. And you know what? That's funny. And I'm always for those sorts of things where it's kind of like an inside baseball. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Vancouver knew, and in fairness, Tocchet did say, he thanked the ownership, he thanked Alvin and Rutherford. He praised his players for coming close to the playoffs in Vancouver this year, despite the injuries and all the adversity. But he did have to get that one dig about the practice facilities, and I gotta say I appreciated that. One thing I do want to go back to though about ownership, I think it's worth noting that him saying like the stability of ownership and how, he wanted to come back because he feels comfortable in ownership. You might not like the hire. I don't know if they get Tocchet if Dan Hilferty hasn't put in the work that he's put in over the last 2 years to mend fences with the Flyers alumni and overarching Flyers old school community. To me, that was a comment when he was talking about ownership. That was a comment about the fact that Hilferty and the new Comcast Spectacor is different from the post Ed Snyder,
the Hextall era
Comcast Spectacor business buttoned up.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tocchet joins that organization, but I think he wanted to make it clear that that was one of the reasons why he's willing to come back, because he's joining a new Flyers organization, which he believes respects the old much more than that brief middle period Flyers organization did.
Well, they've hired a bunch of ex-Flyers, in the past couple of years. So, hey, they're back in the flow. They're back in the rhythm.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think one of the big questions people had, because, we talked about that quote about Pettersson, like we're reprogramming his brain the other day. We talked about that quote and how that kind of scared some people. Like, okay, are we trying to turn high-end skill players into something else? And when he was asked about Michkov, I did think it was like the thing that we've heard that kind of separates him maybe from, there's always that stereotype, like the Europeans, the Russians, they're soft, blah, blah, blah. Well, we just watch Michkov up close. Dude ain't soft.
No.
He competes. He goes to the dirty areas. He gets in players way bigger than him's faces when I'm like, dude, get out of there. Like, someone needs to jump in right now.
Please don't.
And
I'm actively concerned.
he didn't want to really talk too much about specific players. And I think that's smart, like, because you don't want to also leave anyone out. Like, I believe in this guy and this guy and this guy. It's like, well, what about him? Oh, yeah, forgot to mention him.
You're cool. You're cool.
Yeah,
you're cool.
Exactly.
F you. You're cool.
Exactly. But he was like, and I don't think this was like a shot at Pettersson, but the difference between those two guys is like, we know, as Charlie has said, like, yeah, Mish, he's got that dog in him.
He's got that dog.
He is 100%. He is 100% going to work hard enough to get as close to being the best player in the league as he possibly can. I don't think there will be, whatever his ceiling is, I very much doubt there will be any what ifs about Matvei Michkov, because he's going to put in the work.
He had the best Flyers rookie season in 30 years, despite John Tortorella. So I'm not worried.
No. He also did mention working with TK and Konecny at Four Nations. I thought this was really interesting. He referenced John Cooper and being in the room, and they're deciding who's going to make the team, and they're watching Travis Sanheim, and they're like, this is a high-level defenseman. You are lucky to have a guy like Travis Sanheim. We saw Shaw and Torts take Sanheim to another level, a level at which we had never seen him play previously. Mm-hmm. It feels like Tocchet thinks there's still more there as well.
Yeah, it seems like Tocchet was very, very impressed by what he saw from Sanheim. I thought Sanheim played well in Four Nations. Didn't play quite as well when he came back from Four Nations. Hopefully, they can get, if not more out of him, at least what Shaw got out of him. It's a concern of mine. Like, a lot of these defensemen took big steps under Brad Shaw. I hope that they prioritize the defenseman hire as much as I believe they should, because you're losing a real good one. And I do worry a little bit about guys' backside. The guy I worry the most about by far is Jamie Drysdale.
Yes.
Because he was really starting to make serious developmental progress under Shaw, and now he's going to have to learn from an entirely new person, and there's no guarantee that he's going to have that same relationship with the new guy. I hope they understand how important it is with Shaw gone to get a really good developmental defenseman coach.
Well, and Cam York's really at a weird precipice in his career, too, after everything that went down with John Tortorella late last season.
Sure.
And also, it felt like he had a fine season, but we were hoping for him to have a really good season last year.
The offense still hasn't come around. Obviously, he butted heads with Torts, so you would think that with York, like, just not having to deal with Torts should help him, but we'd rather him take a step, beyond that, not just getting back to where he was in the second half of 2 seasons ago, but taking another step and becoming a 30, 35, 40 point a year defenseman who also drives play and can take tough minutes. That would be the dream.
Absolutely. I want that for him so bad, because you see the potential and it's there.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like Rick Tocchet's, like he's a first-time head coach or anything, so like he's got experience doing this as well. It did seem like his experience as a player was a bit of a selling point, though. Like whether it's Danny talking about he was a mentor to me with the Coyotes, or Tocchet himself kind of saying, when I'm talking to a player, because they asked him, like, you came up in a different era and coach just said something and you just did it, or you didn't have a job anymore.
Sure thing.
And now the players want to know why. And he was like, listen, because they're smart and they want the reasons. Like, they have ideas too.
Yeah.
And you have to communicate with them. And whenever I'm doing that, I try to put myself in their spot as a player. That is a difference from John Tortorella. John Tortorella played in the NCAA. He played in the Atlantic Coast Hockey League in the 80s, which I did some reading about before the show, and it's a hilarious league, but not a particularly high-level one, I wouldn't say. This is the NHL. Rick Tocchet is one of, he's a franchise legend. He was an excellent player. Now he's a head coach. It seems like, I don't know if it was one of the main points, but one of those little distinctions that they were drawing subtly.
I think it's hard for me to say how big of a deal it was in the room. I suspect it played into it, but that is a feeling among players that Tortorella maybe, and he's obviously, been a successful NHL coach. He's won a ton of games. He's won a Stanley Cup. He has respect in the game. But there absolutely is a feeling of kind of like, you got nerve, buddy, being this hard on players and doing the things you do when you never were in the NHL. Obviously, Tocchet has not only the experience of being in the NHL, but being a really good player in the NHL. That may help him in terms of connecting with certain players.
I totally forgot about Super Chats again. We've only been doing this 2 years, and I forgot about Super Chats somehow.
Oh, you're doing great.
I'm excellent at my job, quite honestly. So before we get to Super Chats, got to tell you, we're headed to overtime. Go to allphly.com for more of the show if you're watching on TV. And without further ado, let's hit those Super Chats. All right. That was Charlie. When I was making a face when you were talking to me, I wasn't responding to you. I was just like, what else do we have to do? There's like 2 minutes left. Oh, no, there's way more than 2 minutes left because we didn't do this yet. All right, first one here from JH. Since we're officially in summer now, do left lane campers go to regular hell or special hell? It's special hell. There is maybe nothing just get in the right lane. You can do 9 if you're over there. I don't care. I don't just get out of my way. I will never understand. Like, aren't you in the car to get somewhere? Isn't that why you got in your vehicle to go? I want to get there as quickly as I possibly can. It just drives me insane.
So one thing I will say, and I'm not a fan of the Jersey drivers. I think they're awful.
Oh yeah,
I think they're terrible.
We're the worst.
But the one thing I will acknowledge that they have a point on, because I've taken notice of this over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, especially, is I-95 in Philly, like within the Philly limits. It is wild to me how people just treat the left lane in 95 as if like you're going down the boulevard. Like they don't treat it as if it's the fast lane. No one goes fast in the left lane of 95 when you are in the Philly area. And it's just like, well, then what's the point? Like this is it's a highway. The left lane is the fast lane. Why are you treating it like it's a normal lane?
Pennsylvania doesn't have signs that say keep right except to pass. Those signs actually mean if you want to go 90, get in the left lane, everyone else move over. That's what that means. But yeah, thanks, JH. You got my blood boiling now.
There we go.
It's a Friday.
Fired up.
It's a Friday in the summer and it's raining. I can't wait to see how long it takes to get home.
Oh yeah.
From DA Flyers, man. Good to hear from you, DA. I've decided I'm glad we lost the draft lottery. Clearly, we suck at picking in the top 5, so maybe 6 is the sweet spot.
I mean, they got michkov at 7.
They did. They did. I think Yoni Pikkinen was a decent choice at 4. What was it, 3 or 4?
4.
Yeah, 4.
Whoever the best is out of that group at the top that we get at 6, that's cool because there's some good guys up there. Yeah.
It'll be fine, probably.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't take Brady Martin.
Just don't
Yes. For the love of God, don't take Brady Martin.
We will get to Brady Martin next week. I have a real fear when I sit down to watch him. He's going to be my guy.
He could be.
Oh, he is going to be your guy.
We broke 200 likes. Good job, gang.
Way to go.
Good job, gang.
All right. From Who is Mike Mall? This is now the second time Danny's had a miscommunication that pushed someone away from the organization. Makes you think.
I don't think it's a miscommunication. I just think that the Flyers
they had a hierarchy.
They had a hierarchy, and that was the hierarchy. I don't think it was a miscommunication. I think that the two sides communicated, and it was just that, like, you're obviously not going to tell Brad Shaw that you are our backup option if Rick Tocchet doesn't take the job, but it's abundantly clear that he was their backup option if Rick Tocchet didn't take the job. If Rick Tocchet took the job.
Or is Cutter Gauthier the other miscommunication here? Because, like, I don't think that's a miscommunication.
I think we're taking leaps to assume that was caused by a miscommunication when we don't really know why. It's possible.
We don't know why.
Sucking. We don't know why.
Yeah, I just think like they made a determination in their mind that hiring Rick Tocchet was more important than keeping Brad Shaw in some way.
Yeah.
And having Brad Shaw as a backup option was more important than like letting him know he ain't getting the job.
Right.
Like I just think that's business.
That's business.
Like
Yeah.
that's business.
Yep, business, exactly.
All right.
Next.
From Joe Rockhead, great answer from Talk on the JT Miller matter. I thought it was a little vague, but also like, what are you going to talk about now? He's a Ranger. You're no longer with Vancouver. Pettersson's still like, what are you going to get into it? So it was fine. I thought it was a fine answer.
I think it was vague because everyone knows that Tocchet doesn't like Pettersson. So he wasn't going to be like, yeah, you know, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, love them both, love them equally. They're like my kids. Like, no, he was going to be a little vague because if you hooked him up to a lie detector and stabbed him with truth serum, he'd be like, yeah, Elias Pettersson, you don't got it.
Or is it torch serum?
He would have torch serum
because Torts would have just gone, yeah, I hate him.
because
not my kind of guy.
My kind of guy.
My guess of the way that Tocchet honestly views the Pettersson Miller situation is, look, yeah, JT was a little bit of a dick, but Elias, come on, man, deal with it, toughen up, be a man. I bet that's his view.
You can act like a man.
You can be a man.
And it is like, you know who like Chris Pronger is one of the best defensemen of all time. He wasn't a nice man.
Oh, no.
He wasn't.
True.
He was. I remember in that 2011 season, like when he went out with an injury, it was like his last game. Him and Giroux got into it. Like Giroux was a kid at the time.
Yeah, he was yelling
and
at
it
him.
was like when Pronger came back, they're like, you know, that situation. He's like, you guys remember what happened after that, right? Like I missed 2 months. Like maybe I wasn't in the best mood, and like he's a much younger. Like sometimes you just get in a fight. It happens. Teammates don't always get along.
Not wrong.
Like it is what it is, I guess. And we'll have to. Hopefully, the culture that they have set here is strong enough that our two best players don't hate each other, and then it won't be a problem.
Like what a concept! What a concept!
All right, from Chad. PHLY Discord is aflame with the scandal of Charlie being the slow driver blocking the left lane. No question. Just think it needs discussion.
I don't know where this came from.
Charlie's offended.
No, well, no, I'm not going 100 miles an hour, but that's because I'm not an insane driver. Like, if I'm in the left-hand lane, I'm going to go probably like somewhere between 5 and 15 miles an hour faster than what the speed limit is. Like, if being a slow driver is like not going above 90, then yeah, but like I don't do that because I don't want to die.
How are you jabronis going to be out here questioning Charlie the Speed Demon O'Connor? Come on.
He got here from the stadium in time for today's show.
Sure did.
And it's raining.
Yeah.
Look, if you're regularly driving over 90 and that's your normal, like that's a you problem. Okay, sorry. Like drive safer.
It's calling you out.
There's for the Jerseyites out there, Route 55 is just a different world. It's prison rules. It's
prison rules. That's actually true.
There's just no laws. All right. From JH, Charlie is still the best though.
Sure.
Of course he is. He's the Phillies #1 hockey beat writer.
Yeah. Come on.
All right. From Obi-Wan, conspiracy. We fired Torts the second we knew Tocchet was available.
I don't think that's true. But I do think let me put it this way. I think once they realized that Tocchet was an option, they were starting to plan for the offseason.
I think once it was, like you said, clear Tocchet wasn't going to be in Vancouver probably, there was a diminishing chance of Tortorella ever getting the final year of his contract.
Yes, I 100% agree with that.
Whether it was maybe, okay, he'll move upstairs, but Danny kind of threw cold water on that after the fact. Like, whatever it was, if Rick Tocchet was available, I think there was no chance that John Tortorella was going to be year 4 head coach. That's my take.
Yeah.
All right, another one here from our pal JH. I'm so excited they changed the IBS patch to white.
Oh, did they?
The IBX, I guess.
The jersey they held up, was it a white patch?
It was.
I didn't
This
notice
really
that.
bothers people.
Just get rid of it.
People got real annoyed by that. It was irrelevant to me, but fans were angry about it.
I hate the advertisements no matter what, so I don't care what they look like.
Yes, exactly.
I'll tell you who has a great one, though, is the Leafs with milk.
Milk is
that
great.
cracks me up.
Milk.
That I think it's great.
Milk is fantastic.
I honestly, I would settle for that all day. If they had milk, I'd actually, if I bought a jersey,
Maybe Cheese Whiz.
I'd be like, give me the one with the patch on it. I would actually want it if it just said milk.
Give me one that says Whiz. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
good.
I'm into that.
All right, from Linden49, glad to hear Danny's excitement about the draft.
Yeah, they're excited about it. They're excited about how many picks they have. They're excited about the ammunition they have to trade up, to use assets to trade for players, to maybe trade back and pick up more assets. I think they're excited about just the fact that they can do stuff at this draft.
They're going to AC. Of course they're excited.
Yeah. Hit up the blackjack tables. I don't know.
come
Maybe
on.
some of the people in the organization play poker. Possibly the analytics team. You know, I feel like analytics people tend to like poker.
Yes, they do. That's my experience.
I can't just Charlie down there covering the draft at the roulette table. I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's see here from Gus the Groundhog. Put on some pants, Gus. Charlie, how aggressive was your driving between arena and studio today? Bill, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is Charlie's road rage?
Have you ever driven?
I was gonna say,
I don't know if you've ever been in a car with me,
Charlie,
when I've been driving.
I don't know.
I've been in a car with you when you've drove.
Yeah, I'm an okay driver, I'd say. No, I don't know if Charlie's ever driven me anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He drives normal because we leave and go the same direction out of here. He seems to drive pretty normal when I'm behind him. I don't know. My road rage is out of hand. I can't be.
That's a shocker to me.
Ava doesn't let me drive because she's like, you ruined the whole day. Like, it's no. And
No.
Like, I'm never mad about anything unless I'm behind the wheel of a car, and then I'm a homicidal maniac.
You're never mad about anything.
I mean,
Never.
I'm acting out here. Yeah.
Don't tell him he got mad.
do not put in the
not
papers
tell
that
him
I
he
got
got
mad. All right.
But to answer your question, I really didn't have to drive that fast. I got out of there around 11:30 and got here in time.
All right, from Gus. From Purple Crayon.
Harold.
McQueen episode delayed yet again. Purple Crayon in shambles.
Do we want to? Because I'm going to be gone most of next week. Do we want to
Yeah.
back up the McQueen stuff?
You're going to be back Friday, right?
I'll be back Friday, and I'll be remote Monday.
Let's do McQueen
McQueen Monday.
Monday and Martin Friday.
Can we not do Martin Friday?
All right.
Because I'm not going to have time to do the research I need to do
All right.
while I'm away.
We'll push Martin until we can actually do it.
Okay.
We will do McQueen Monday.
McQueen Monday.
Write it down. They're going to make a trade. All right. From Nicholas Hankins. Is it realistic for Flyers to move a later first round pick into the teens? What would the cost be? What the teams might actually be willing to move?
So I've looked into this. Is it realistic? It's possible. It's definitely more likely than trading up again into the top 10. What would be fair compensation based on draft pick charts would be something like, let's say, the Colorado pick, which is going to be the earlier of the 2 first rounders, and then plus like a second. That would be fair compensation. Now, a lot of times, if you want to get a deal done, though, you have to overpay to move up, especially if a team doesn't really want to trade down. Is it possible they could be like, we'll give you both the late first to move up to like 13, 14, 15? It would be an overpay, but if they have their guy they really want, you would think that would be at least attractive to a team potentially.
I now believe that pick is going to be 32 because after last year, it's like, oh, well, that's a good trade because you kick it down the can until next season. You kick the can down the road till next season, and it's the Florida pick. It's 32. As long as Edmonton doesn't win the cup, well, I fully kind of want to bet on Edmonton now for no other reason than we have their pick. All right, let's see here. Another one from Nick Hankins. Besides Schaefer, is there a potential 1D in this draft? As I did want to start as we make our way through some of the prospects, like talking about Aitchison and some of the other defensemen.
Yeah,
I know
Smith.
no one thinks they're going to take a defenseman, but what if they just have him higher on the board?
I don't
take
think
the better player.
I can't imagine a defenseman is going to be taken at 6. I could easily see a defenseman being taken with one of those late firsts. To answer your question, Nicholas, you can never rule it out because some of these guys in that mid-tier, Mirtka, Aitchison, Smith, those types of dudes, there is a plausible outcome where they become number ones. It's just a pretty low likelihood. So I can't say that there's definitely no chance that there's not a number one defenseman aside from Schaefer in this draft. It's possible, but Schaefer is the one guy who you can feel reasonably confident can get there.
All right, another one.
Last year there were 6.
Yeah. Now another one from JH. Calling it now, Sam wins Vezina 2026.
Sam Carchidi? I saw him today.
Oh, Slam and Sammy.
Yeah, Slam and Sammy was there.
Yeah.
JH, if you believe that, I bet you
Maybe there's
if
a
it's
Sam
not
we haven't
available,
heard of.
if it's not available at your local sports book, ask them for odds on Airson, and they will give you a tremendous price because they will be very excited to take your money on that.
Put 50 cents on that
Yeah,
one.
so do whatever you have to do to get that if you are actually a believer in it.
Yeah,
All right,
I wouldn't.
From Obi, one more for Bill. Thank you very much, Obi-Wan. Appreciate it from the Force Ghost that is one of our regular listeners. From Daft Digit. And here is another one for Bill. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
They love you, man.
They do. And from Alex, this is not Biscotti, it's Biscardi. Do you feel concerned that management does not seem committed to building through top-tier draft talent like the best teams
Alex,
did?
this is a question for 3 podcasts, not for when we're 15 minutes over our normal hour-long length. Is it a concern? It's a concern because you need high-end talent to win. They just need to find other ways to get high-end talent, which are harder ways, possible ways, but harder ways.
You got Matvei Michkov.
If you believe the hockey intelligentsia, they just got one of those top-end talents in their coach. So they attracted one, which leads you to believe they might be able to attract more.
Can you play right wing?
That's
Well, he could at one time.
I said that on Gargano the other day. If he was available as a free agent, double whatever you gave. 100%. I just don't know about him as a coach. But hey, if he is going to be the conduit to all this high-end talent that we're going to trade for, sign, whatever, great. Way to go.
I've always said he's the perfect Flyer in his heyday, right? Fought and scored goals.
Yeah. No, he's the caricature. That's it.
Yeah.
After the 70s, it's you.
Yeah.
you're a Flyer.
Him and Wayne Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on the YouTube page and hit that like button. Set that reminder bell so you never miss a live show. We'll be back Monday at noon. Of course, our summer schedule, Monday to Friday, noon to 1. So make sure you know when to check us out live. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers, and we're on Blue Sky as well. And the podcast, just search PHLY Flyers. And while you're looking at podcasts, maybe check out Flyperbole. Steve does a hell of a job over there, as does everyone at Broad Street Hockey. All right, I am Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. That's Steve Jaco. Until Monday, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.